Hello and welcome to Chat with Dr. Kat. I'm Dr. Kat, and we're going to be talking about bullying today. We're going to actually have a series of episodes discussing different types of bullying. Today we're going to be talking about some of the experiences that maybe your children would be experiencing at school, the different types of bullying, how it affects them, and what are some things that you can do to work with your children to prevent this. I do think that a lot of schools take great measures to prevent bullying. Do all schools? I don't think so. You will have certain schools that will come up with papers that parents have to sign and say, if you see that there's any type of sexual misconduct happening, if you see that there's anything, save the children, let's make sure that there's no sexual abuse. You have to sign your life away saying that you will take all steps measured. All of that is vital and important. But why aren't we signing documents about bullying? Bullying happens not only amongst the children, it happens amongst the parents, and it happens with the teachers in the workforce. So those are the different types. We've got workforce, we've got students, we've got couples where there's bullying, parents that bully other parents, you've got kids that bully their parents. There's a lot of different types of bullying that goes on. Now, not everything that occurs is actual bullying. So we are going to define some things along those lines with bullying. But let me go back to the schools. And before I get there, if you have any thoughts or comments, please go to chatwithdrkat.com. Let me know. This is one that came in quite a bit, bullying, to talk about. So I really wanted to go ahead and start addressing that and begin that series because bullying is hard and it's difficult. I will tell you this. I will be talking about some physical bullying that goes on. But when people come to therapy, say they're in their 30s and 40s, and they talk about that they were bullied, it's usually the content of words that were used. They could say, yeah, someone would beat me up. It was horrible. I developed these fears. But what really anchors them into lack of confidence, maybe depression, anxiety, it's usually around words that are used. And oftentimes those words that are used are intentional to bully, but may not be even what the person really thinks about the person. But they've said something so harsh and it's landed with that person and they've kept it in their own mind, which has kept it going for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, for a long time, their lifetime. Do you want to be that person who somebody else is talking about 30 years later that had devastated them so badly and that they're still in therapy? Do you want to be that person? Now, they have their own issues. Why did they keep going for 30 years? Why did they allow that to happen? There's a lot of different factors. But what you can control is how you treat people. What you can control is maybe the lessons you give your children today on how to be kind and respectful to people that can last a lifetime. And now people are remembering your child or you as somebody who was so kind to them and so wonderful to them. Why not be that person? So, going back to the schools. I think it is imperative that schools have anti-bullying paperwork before your child is enrolled. And not only for the child to child, but parent to parent. If you are going to be volunteering at your school, there should be an anti-bullying that goes on. Because a lot of times there is a dynamic. You've got the parents who work that may not be able to be involved. You've got the parents who work and are crazy busy, but do a tremendous amount. You've got the people that don't want to necessarily be involved, but always have something to say. And you have other people that just don't know how to get involved. It can be torturous for people who are actively being a part of your child's school to be constantly scrutinized or bullied or any of those things. So again, find a place in which you can be involved. But if the school notices that a parent is bullying, and you've signed a document, all the principal has to do, the director, come back and say, this is what you signed in the beginning. This is what's going on. We're going to give you one opportunity to make better choices. From that, if it doesn't change, then you'll no longer be able to volunteer. And the school may have an option between volunteering or paying for volunteer hours. Then if the person has gone through a 3-step process, then they've got to be able to just pay, because they're no longer able to do it from a volunteer perspective because they're bullying. Cause and effect. If you're going to be bullying, there should be a consequence. If you want to be kind, there's a consequence. You choose your consequence. Do you want something great to come of it, or do you want something negative? So if schools started implementing this, that there's consequences for bullying, that would be fabulous. Now, here's the thing. Many schools will have bullying seminars. People come in, describe what bullying is, the effects of bullying, how a child feels when they're being bullied. And I will say, the majority of people who attend those guest speakers or seminars that come to school are the parents of the kids who are being bullied, not the ones who have kids who are bullies. Because maybe they don't see anything as being wrong. Maybe they're strong. Maybe kids will be kids. Or maybe they just don't know what's going on because their child isn't coming home miserable, crying nonstop. They don't want to eat because they're bullied so much at school. So if all of these things became mandatory, where people became aware of what they could do to help children navigate through behaviors, this would be ideal. So the first one we're going to look at is physical bullying. Now, physical bullying is when a child is actually doing things physical. So maybe they're sitting in a desk and the person flicks them behind the ear. Maybe they trip them as they're walking. Maybe they do something where they're beating them up. We can go to the extreme. This is physical bullying, where now the child fears pain, fears the physical interaction. Psychologically speaking, that fear becomes paranoia. Is it going to happen today? Or the fact is, you're sending your child to school and they're physically in pain because someone is inflicting that on them. That's physical bullying. Verbal bullying. Now, here's the thing about verbal bullying, what I see a lot of times in school. The moment there is a no physical contact. Now, that usually exists in all schools. The moment somebody hits somebody else, that's it, you're suspended. Well, what happens if somebody verbally bullies somebody and annihilates their character, annihilates their family, annihilates who they are on a regular basis? You know, they walk by and they're like, ugh, every time they walk by. That's bullying. You know, the first time maybe a kid can laugh it off, but months, years, because sometimes in elementary school, it goes to 8th grade. And every time that kid walks by, there's a gagging response, or like dog, or, ugly, or whatever it is. And they hear it every day, multiple times a day. What this does to that child, a couple things can happen. It can get to the point where they say, I'm going to be bigger and better and I'm going to overcome this. Okay, fabulous. The other one is break down, don't want to go to school. They don't do well in school for fear they're going to be spoken to in a certain way. They don't want to get up and speak. They don't want to be a part of school. I did some work on the Dr. Phil show, and I remember this one episode that I worked on. And this woman who lived in Illinois, and she had a very rural area. So she came onto the show because she was trying to recover from what happened to her son. So here he is, good-looking boy, had a relationship, His grades were not affected. He had straight A's, was doing extremely well, but had been bullied since elementary school. Again, small area that they were living in, so the same elementary all the way went up through high school with the same kids. And he wound up taking his own life, this boy. And the note he left was pretty much, I can't take it anymore. I am told I am this horrible, disgusting individual every day of my life. Why does my girlfriend like me? Why do my teachers like me? I can't take it anymore. They must all be wrong. I must be this horrible individual. Now, something was going on with him that he would take all that in. But here's the funny thing, the simplicity. When I say funny and simplicity, if you hear the same thing over and over and over again, eventually you can start believing it, even if it's not true. Even if it's not true. But I'm sharing this story with you about this woman because she was so desperate. She didn't know what to do, but she wanted to create a difference in the school so children would not be bullied. Now, why is it, again, if a kid hits somebody, instant, but you can do these things for years and there's no consequences? Verbal abuse and verbal bullying can have some of the highest level of impact on a child's psyche. Look, all of us, no one wants to be annihilated every day. No one wants to feel bad about ourselves every single day. Should we feel bad about ourselves any day? No. But the fact that they endure this in their most significant personality forming period of time, how they view themselves, their community, the world, it's a village issue if this is what's going on. Social bullying. Now, social bullying, this is a tough one because we see this a lot in schools, especially in high schools, and we definitely see this amongst the parents. And what it is it's excluding and usually spreading rumors. So what does that look like? They're a part of a group, okay? Say they're a large part of a group, maybe 8 kids, 8 parents. They go out all the time. They spend all their time together. And now 2 of them are fighting. 2 of them are fighting, and you've got one that is stronger than the other one. And the stronger one starts saying, look, to somebody else in the group, okay? The other 6 people. If you invite that person, I'm not going to go, and I'm going to tell the other people not to come. You better tell them that they can't come. And it's a way to get back at them when they're angry. But that's bullying. That is bullying. What I suggest, if you have a child who says, so-and-so has been doing this, we're fighting, and now we're going to do our annual picnic, our annual movie night. But I'm not going to invite them, and I'm going to tell everybody that that person is not invited. Depending on what's happened, if it's not that extreme, but it's more emotion-based, sit down, talk to your child, figure out why that conversation hurt them so badly, but also talk to them about excluding them would now be a form of bullying. Maybe it's an opportunity to resolve. Let's see, maybe you give them skills and tools in order to work on the situation so they wouldn't have to exclude. Because I'll tell you this, it makes everyone uncomfortable. So you've got this group of 8, 2 are fighting. Everyone is impacted by those choices. If you start spreading rumors because you want to get back at them, everyone involved is sitting there going, oh my gosh, we know that's not true. But then if we say this, look, she's going to start spreading this about me. So then they engage out of self-preservation. The pressure, the guilt now of that kid. Hopefully they can step up and say, hey, that didn't happen. You need to stop. And not have the fear that that one that's spreading rumors about the other one is now going to be spreading rumors about them. This dynamic is very, very difficult. We need to continue to have conversations with our children, give them some feedback. They need to navigate themselves, though. You can give them the skills, you can give them tools to use, but they need to learn how to navigate through life and figure out how to deal with those bullies, because there'll be bullies at work. There'll be bosses who will be bullies. They may have a bullying relationship where the person is a bully, and they need to learn how to now step away from that relationship. However, if it does get to the point where resolution is not met and your child is so distraught, doesn't want to go to school, and it gets really, really bad, then as parents, we should step in, talk to the other parent. Let's figure out how we can navigate this so that our children are not suffering. Now, that would happen in the ideal world. If you're dealing with a parent where you're looking at it and say, well, the reason why that kid is bullying is because that parent is a bullying, it's going to be harder to navigate. It is. It will be. But there are tools that you can use to help them through it. So I recommend that you don't exclude, don't spread rumors, don't have your child get involved in these things. If your child comes up to you and says, these two are fighting, I'm having a party, I think what I should do, if I don't invite this one, who's the stronger one, she's going to get mad at me, and then she's going to get me out of the group. So this one, I think will be okay if I don't invite them. Please encourage your children, maybe even make it a rule, to not get involved in what's going on with those two other friends. Invite everyone, and those two can decide if they want to attend or not. Because when you are picking the lesser of the two evils, I will tell you this, the one that is left out, because they're the easier one, will be so hurt, so devastated. And this is not only true of kids, but of parents and friends. Do you really want to be a cause of that because you don't want to get involved, or you want to somehow navigate and figure out? Just invite them. Let them figure it out. That's my suggestion to you. Cyberbullying. Now, cyberbullying, that's a big one, because now what happens is kids are no longer bullying each other at school, or maybe they have a fight. You've got two best friends that are having a fight, and now they're posting a video or a song or a reel. They're reposting something that is a message to that person, and they write on there, you know who you are. Well, everyone knows who you are because you two are fighting and not talking at school. So now, not only is it your friend group that knows what's going on with the fighting, now the school community knows, and every other school and everybody in everyone's friend group. And now that person says, oh yeah, repost what I put. This is a lot. Now it's not just 4 people involved, 5 people involved, 2 people involved. It's now hundreds. It could be thousands of people involved. Speak to your children about cyberbullying and how important it is to not do that. Or they take a picture of their best friend when they looked their worst, but at the moment it was so funny, it was a sleepover, and now they post that on social media. Look, we all have our terrible moments where we wake up, our hair is all over the place, we don't look our best. Do you really want that posted out there? Probably not. And for somebody who's an adolescent, young adult, this could be devastating to them. Now, in the scheme of things, is it the worst thing in the world? No. But at that moment, it could be the worst thing in the world for that child. So speak to your children about cyberbullying. Let them know that that's not okay and it's not acceptable. Sometimes if we in our household have consequences, punishments, things that you have to do as a result of bullying, not only are they going to get it at school, maybe a punishment or a consequence, they get it at home. So now everyone is working together to say it's not okay to affect somebody at that great level. Now, we know the phrase, hurt people hurt people. So maybe something is going on at home. So if your child is being bullied horribly, please go to the school, talk to the school. Now, I know your child will be fearful of repercussions. So you have to navigate that because those repercussions may be in fact true. So you have to learn to navigate that. And maybe going to the school at that time may not work. But if it gets to that point, go to the school. But maybe not go in and demand that this kid be punished, but maybe kind of set the stage and say something must be going on with this child, that they are this angry and that they're this mean. Something must be going on, and I have empathy and sympathy for what's going on. But at the same time, it needs to stop. My child cannot be bled over onto because this child is cut from something else going on at home. Maybe something mentally is going on, but he can't then or she bleed over onto other people. So, navigate, help, see what's going on. But please don't think, oh, kids will be kids, they'll get over it. They usually don't. Sexual bullying. Now, sexual bullying, this is, can be subtle. Boys or girls speaking about the other gender, being sexist, making comments. I would hope at this day and age, we are raising our children to not attack the other gender, to not be sexist. I think it's important. Women are still not at the place that we need to be as far as equality. And I think for people to say, oh my gosh, that conversation needs to stop, has never experienced it, or they don't think it exists. But it still does exist. When we look in the workforce, men are still getting paid more than women, not in all situations, but in a lot of situations. Men and women are being treated differently in the workplace. Women are the ones who are having babies, and they are treated differently because they are the ones carrying the baby, where the man doesn't carry the baby. Work will not be affected. A woman, yes, we can do it all, but being pregnant affects your body, affects your mind, it affects everything. It's physically going on with the person. Yet a lot of times we don't make room for that for them in the workplace. I got to tell you, when I was pregnant, there were days during the first trimester and the last trimester where I have never felt tired like that. Like there's nothing like pregnancy tired. Wouldn't it be great if you were in an environment in a workplace where there was a room that a pregnant woman could go to just to lay down for 20 minutes during her break to just recover from that tired? I'm telling you right now, that woman's productivity and who she is would be so much better if we can accommodate. I learned something new recently too, that the state of Rhode Island has now put in a law that someone had told me this, that they had seen this on a show, that women in the workforce who are going through menopause, the workplace has to take some accountability and accommodations to not judging a woman during that time going through menopause. Now, there's a lot more going on into that, but I was just so impressed because it is the reality. Women have been women will deal with their periods, then they're dealing with childbirth if they choose to do that. So their bodies are just havoc is wrecked on their bodies during that time. Then they get to a certain point where they're going through menopause, there's changes. Look, we all know it's coming. From the beginning of time, this is what women went through. Let's have some accountability for that. Let's, as a village, women are bringing the babies into the world. Women are sacrificing all that. Let's help accommodate a little bit more. So let's raise our young men. Let's raise our young women to not be sexist. Let's be aware of all those things. So, especially in high school, maybe talk to your boys about saying, if a young lady is saying, I'm really frustrated, I'm really angry with you. Why? Are you on your period? Worst thing you can say to a girl. Worst thing. Let's show our men, our young men, how to treat women. And to be aware that women go through these things and for the expense and the cost of everyone else. Okay. And that other one, I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to do another episode just on that. The other one is prejudicial. Wait, am I even saying that right? But prejudicial. This is where we look at race, religion, disability, sexual orientation. When you are targeting somebody just on those issues. Hate crimes. We look at it as hate crimes. If somebody says something to somebody just based on what they believe religiously. And here's a quote, and I may have said this before and you'll hear me say it again. There's a quote that someone had stated years ago, that people know enough about religion to have faith and belief, but not enough to not hate. I just thought it was such a great one, because if we really look at the core of religion, hopefully it's about being kind to one another, being respectful, following certain guidelines in order to be living our lives peacefully and within our communities and our villages and our world. That's what those should be about. So we need to talk to people about that. Talk to our young people about how to be kind to others when there's difference, to have tolerance and acceptance of other people's differences. You know, I was at the Hollywood Bowl and I was with a friend, and we were at a concert. And Hollywood Bowl is located in California, Los Angeles, California. It's an outdoor arena, and they've got all these workers working there, navigating as you're walking up and down aisles, just making sure everyone is following rules, because you can bring in picnic baskets and have picnics there. So there's a lot of guidelines that go on, and a lot of employees. And so it was towards the end of the concert, and we wanted to walk out because we got this great parking spot and we wanted to be able to get out rather than take an hour. So as we're walking out, sure enough, there's the song that we wanted to hear. So we went up a little bit on this hillside, because remember, it's outdoors. And this other couple joined us. And this one employee came over in a wheelchair and said, "Hey, you guys, you have to come down off that hill." My friend and I, we said, "Oh my goodness, we were so sorry." We got down, and it was a small little hill, but we got down, and I said, "I'm so sorry." The other couple, the man became so angry, and started mouthing off to this employee. The employee looked at me and says, "Look, these are the guidelines. These are the rules. I need you to follow the rules, and it's for your safety." That man turned around and started screaming at him and tried to intimidate him, and then finally ended up with saying, "What, are you just jealous because you don't have legs that work?" I was so mortified. I mean, of course, I spoke up. I said something. I was not the only one. At that point, it was actually kind of a beautiful thing. I would say about a group of like 5 or 6 of us kind of came to this man and were like, "That is not okay. You do not treat anyone with that level of disrespect." This guy kept mouthing off. He took off walking. And my friend looked at the girl he was with, because it looked like they were on a date. And she looked and she says, "Take note of this. Take note. You're next." I thought, wow, that was impactful, because this is another area that we've got to look at. If your kids are dating in high school and they notice certain behaviors in college as well, certain behaviors of the person that they're dating, they're like, wow, they're so wonderful in all other areas, but they say things that are inappropriate and bullying. Maybe they're saying something that is against somebody's appearance. Maybe they're saying something verbally that's horrible. Maybe they're doing social bullying. Maybe they're doing certain things. That is somebody who's a bully. They will eventually bully your child, because it's something within them, unless they work on it. Now, all bullies don't stay bullies if they choose not to. But these are all teachable lessons that you could be talking to your children with. So today was talking about bullying And this was really about how it affects children. And again, this was just surface. I would like to do a series, and we are going to be doing a series on different types of bullying and how it affects people. I think sometimes people just feel like, oh, well, I'm just upfront. Oh, I just say what's on my mind. But we've got to think about the emotional impact. The other side of it is we have to teach our children how to let certain things roll off their back, not make everything an impact with something that someone has said, because then that allows other people to have too much power over you. So it's a balance. It's a balance. Let's find that balance. So thank you to all of you who brought up bullying. And this is definitely the first step that we're going to take speaking about bullying. So if you have any other thoughts or feelings, please go to chatwithdrkat.com. Let me know. If you have other episode ideas, let me know. And if you yourself have ever experienced bullying and would like to be a guest on the show and talk about your experiences, please let me know. I would love to have you on. Okay, have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.